All right. I got to fix your name here. Got you as Zach Berry. You're not Zach Berry. All right, go ahead, Chase. I'm going to get to audition.
Welcome in, guys, to this edition of Hand Raised Guys on this Thursday evening. Neil and myself still apart. He is in the Clark Ford studio. We'll get started formally here in a couple minutes, but let you guys get settled in. We've got a lot of mailbag questions. I think that'll be the majority of the show tonight. We have a lot of stuff, some pretty good stuff. We used to do, for the people who've been around for a long time, we used to do the Fire Away Friday all the time. We've got away from that a little bit, but pretty good questions here tonight as we're getting going. So I'm trying to get some shadows off me too. I've got like lamps and stuff behind me because that's really the only way to do much from a lighting standpoint here. But nonetheless, let's see. Michael, I have plenty of snow for you. I do not need any of your snow. We have a metric ton here, so you can have some of mine if you'd like it. I'll be more than happy to give it to you.
It's going to melt tomorrow. Most of it. It's going to wake up in the morning and be really slick, and then after that, it's going to start to melt. Got to give the weather people credit. They said we'd have a week full of it, and we did.
They got it pretty right, though.
They really didn't miss much. The only thing they kind of missed was early in the week, instead of getting 8 to 12 inches of snow, we got 2 full inches of ice.
Yeah, there was a pretty good bit of kind of frustration on my part there at the very beginning because I thought, are we even going to get any snow? Because we just got sleet. It was like, okay, what are we doing here? Are we actually going to get some snow? But we did. It worked out. It's all good. So.
UPS Shaggy says, what happened to the video G-Pits? We just haven't done it. It's kind of hard to do 3 people, all from different locations, and then get the audio good. And I don't know, we hadn't done it. I've thought about trying it on my end and kind of seeing what it looks like, but it's just kind of hard to do.
Oh, trying to put you all in at once?
Yeah, where you get the video, but where it all sounds good too.
Okay.
It's just proven to be difficult.
What do you think we ended up with? 6 inches-ish?
I would guess about 1.5 inches of sleet.
Yeah.
And then I would guess between 4 and 5 inches of snow.
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of what I thought too, something like that.
Got about 3 to 4 inches last night, and then probably another inch this morning.
Yeah.
It snowed pretty hard.
This morning, I thought.
Yeah, it snowed pretty hard for a couple of hours today. I didn't know that was coming. So that was like, this morning watching that was like, whoa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing.
Shaggy says they got 11 inches in South Haven. Chet says they got 8 inches in Germantown.
I saw Ramiro's been trying to thaw his eggs all week. He left the eggs outside uncovered and has been trying to figure out how to thaw them out to use them.
That was an error, but he was using a hairdryer down in it. And that,
down in the vent.
And that warmed it up where he could open it up. I grilled steaks. Yeah. I grilled steaks last night, but I kept mine covered all week, and so it was no big deal at all.
Yeah, and it'll hold temperature even in that cold weather, so it's all good.
I've actually grilled 3 nights this week.
Did you?
Yeah, but I'm weird, man. I like cold. It doesn't bother me. Like, it just doesn't bother. I've got Gus and Rizzo have gotten more walks this week than maybe they've gotten in their lifetimes.
They love it though.
Oh, they love it. They can't.
They're all in.
They can't wait to get out in it. They go wrestle in the backyard. They keep wanting to go out. Yeah, they're fired up. I get it. I mean, if I wore a perpetual fur coat, I would like the cold more than I would like 97 degrees and 80% humidity. I mean, I get it completely.
Well, that's fair. Okay.
And you're low to the ground like that, this probably feels really good.
I mean, they're bred for this.
Yeah, they dig it. I mean, we were out walking the other day, and it was sleeting and snowing, and their coats were, they're black labs, and their coats were basically white, and they didn't care. They were good. They were fired up. They would have walked another hour.
Did I retweet this?
I don't know.
Right there. I'm looking. Yeah. Okay. Making sure. All right. Ready to start?
Yeah, sure. I've got audition
Sure.
running, so we can.
We can cut it.
Yep.
Welcome in to the Oxford Exxon podcast, hand raised guys, on this Thursday evening. It is a mailbag edition because of the wintry weather that's going on. Neil and I are still not in the same location, and because of that, we can't take calls. So we can talk to one another. He can take my call, but we can't add you guys in. So we asked the subscribers on the message board for questions, and we got a lot of them. So one main news item, and then we'll get into questions on the show today. A show brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon, Highway 6 West in Oxford. Download the Speed Pass Plus app. Use it as an efficient way right there at the pump to pay at the pump and having to go inside. You earn points and save money there with the Oxford Exxon and all Blue Sky locations in Mississippi. But if you'd like to go inside, you get the hot case full of chicken, barbecue, plenty of side items, breakfast in the morning, and the lunch specials that are 2 sides bread, 32-ounce drinks for $5.69 there at the Oxford Exxon. And again, Neil, at least, is in the Clark Ford studio.
I am. Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900. Call that number. Ask for my friend Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. Right to the bottom line. No hassle, no haggle. You get your quote. The rest totally up to you. You shop that quote around, or you can do what I've done. That's hop into a Clark Ford today. You'll love the product. You'll love the service after the sale. Corey wants to be your car guy. He wants to be your truck guy. He'll prove to you what that means when you can make the call. 662-257-1900. I had to put up a podcast. Chase put up a podcast that I taped with Tommy Prater earlier today. Tommy joined on the Rafters Music and Food hotline. Rafters Music and Food in Oxford. I think they're open tonight. They'll be open this weekend for sure. Ole Miss, Mississippi State at 5 o'clock on Saturday. You can watch that game and hang out at Rafters, enjoy their burgers, po' boys, appetizers, and so much more. Beer, full bar, the whole deal there at Rafters Music and Food on the Square in Oxford and also in New Albany.
So it is 7:11 p.m. on a Thursday as I say the following sentence. But as of right now, I believe Ole Miss is going to play baseball in Arlington, Texas this weekend. I think the State Farm College Baseball Showdown, I believe is what it's called, something like that. I think it's going to happen on schedule, at least on schedule to the new schedule, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Ole Miss leaving town sometime mid-morning out of Birmingham tomorrow. They're flying out of Birmingham. There's rumors that they're flying with Mississippi State. I do not have that confirmed. I've heard it from multiple people that those two teams are flying together. My only little bit of thing on being confused by that is simply COVID and the way you've got to spread out. That requires quite the aircraft from that standpoint. But I don't know. Maybe they are. I know earlier today, State was contemplating backing out of the tournament. They have not done that. It looks like the 6 teams that are scheduled or the 6 teams are going to get there. And there's kind of, look, if you're talking about simply playing the games, a lot of credit here in a couple different areas. The Rangers, just by gosh, are going to play the games, and they said we're going to get 9 games in this weekend if it's at all possible. Dallas still dealing with a lot of power and water situations there in the Metroplex. And they told the schools, hey, do the best you can. We'd love to have you. And if not, basically, we're gonna replace you. I heard Oklahoma State called the Rangers and said, hey, if anybody doesn't show up, we'll be happy to get there and take their place. The University of Iowa, Neil's team called and said, hey, if anybody would like out, we'll be happy to play in their place as well. So, and I'm actually getting word right here. Somebody watching the podcast that says Ole Miss and State are flying together tomorrow. That is confirmed on a plane big enough to handle both of them socially distanced. So,
will they fight?
Well, I mean, State's been really good about that. Baseball for the trifecta with the Bulldogs these days.
I know. We've had the football brawl.
So,
I mean.
Can they
coexist on the same plane? It's a full hour in the air, maybe an hour and a half from Birmingham to Dallas. It could get kind of testy.
So how surprised are you? What do you think that they're playing this thing? Let me tweet this out and kind of post it a couple places while you're talking.
I'm surprised just based on what we were hearing earlier in the day out of Dallas about weather and water and power and all of those things. On the flip side, money had been spent. If you don't play the tournament, you've got to refund all those tickets. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that, 15,000 people per day at, $75 a ticket. Do the math. You got to refund all that money. That hurts. So you want to play it. And then the forecast for the weekend looks pretty good. If you followed some of what's happening in Dallas, if you can get away from ABC World News Tonight, where it's the catastrophe of all time, you do know that people are starting to get their power back. People are starting to get their water services back. And, there's reason to think you can play the tournament. I thought at the beginning of the week when they were sticking to the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I said they're going to cancel because there's no way in hell everybody's going to get there on Thursday in time to play Friday, which turned out to be the truth. But they backed it up a day, and looks like they'll get it done, and kudos to them. Hopefully it goes off without a hitch, and the teams can get there safely, and they can play one another, and the tournament can go on. And like we said all along, from a competitive standpoint, it's 6 of the best, probably 25 programs in the country, and they'll all play one another, and it's going to be an RPI boom for everyone, no matter whether you win or lose, and it's all good. I mean, after all that everyone's been through, I'm also glad for the kids they get to play. They get to play in a major league park where the World Series was played last year, and you see all that the kids at Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Arkansas and Texas Tech, and who am I leaving out? Baylor?
Texas, TCU, Texas Tech.
Yeah, TCU. I mean, all 6 of those teams, they had their seasons ended 2.5 months prematurely last year. And now they've gone through an off season, and they've gone through a preseason, and they get to play the sport that they love to play. So good for them. Yeah,
I mean, again, credit to it. I mean, all the way around. I was just shocked because of, frankly, and not to go here to start the show necessarily, but we're so used to, especially for the last year, everything being so optics based, that with the issues in the Metroplex, some real life and death issues with power and water and different things, that they were playing a baseball stadium in a place that can be also an emergency evacuation area. Kind of shocked me. That's what I thought by the end of the day they might reverse course. But look, the Rangers are kind of in charge there, and they said we're going to play baseball. So they're playing baseball. And at that point, get credit to Ole Miss from an administration standpoint on getting it done. And again, they'll be out there tomorrow. It looks like, again, going out of Birmingham sometime. I think 9 o'clock is what I was told, something like that. But either way, sometime in the morning.
Yeah, so good for them. I mean, happy for all 6 teams. Like I said, I mean, you know this about me. I get this reputation for being a complete jerk, and in many cases it's deserved. But I'm happy for the kids on all that they want to play, and they get to play in a major league park, and that's it. Mainly, and for the fans that are going, that's great. I'm glad the fans get to see, because a lot of fans love college baseball and had it taken away from them in the middle of March last year, and they get to enjoy a weekend of it.
And once you get there and you get settled, there's a roof, and you don't have to worry about it. You're in, you're good. Games are being played, all good.
Well,
so.
You got to be careful getting all of your news from the national news. I mean, there's a real media agenda, and if you watch national news, you'd think it's over. And then the more you dig around in Texas, the more you hear it's been a bad week, but they're resilient. It's going to warm up. It's going to be okay. They're going to fix it.
So the biggest problem is really residential. I was talking to a buddy today who said that houses that are basically more than 10 years old are having huge infrastructure issues from burst pipes. And I'm assuming, I'm far from a plumber, but they don't have the flexible piping that does allow for some of the freezing and whatnot. And said it's been a catastrophe for the most part from that standpoint. So
it's probably about to be a really good time to be a plumber in the Metroplex.
As much work as you would potentially like.
You will be able to work as much as you want to work. and probably charge as much as you want to charge.
Especially if you want to do it. Hey, if you want to bump up in line a little bit, there's a price. You can do whatever you need at that point.
There will be some capitalism.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
so jumping to questions a little bit. D Green Reb leading us off tonight. He said, Chase, do you have having to step away from Ole Miss fandom for your career kind of make you double down on the Saints? I'm a Giants fan. I remember in 2011 because Ole Miss was awful. I was more into Giants games than ever before. Luckily, they won the Super Bowl that year. No, it was my career that did it. Again, you become desensitized very quickly from that standpoint. That was never a problem. But what I'm talking about is because I was so inundated with college baseball that by the time college baseball was over, I was sick of baseball in June, and I couldn't get back into the Braves. I didn't follow them as much while the college season was going on. And then when that was over, I needed a break and kind of a step away from it. Well, by the time you come back, it's August, it's football. The pennant race is basically getting close, and you're just not invested. So what happened was my career hurt my Braves fandom, and that's probably why I went all in on the Saints like I have. The Saints were already number one, but I think that did increase it a little bit. I've never been a huge NBA fan. I mean, I kind of play around being a Mavs fan, and I sort of play around being a Blackhawks fan in the NHL, but that's not what happens. I'm Saints 1, Braves way down, and I watch a ton of golf, and that's pretty much it. So, let's see. Bob and Reb, how'd you and Neil actually end up working together? Did you envision the podcast content would take off like it has over the years? Second part of that, I'll let Neil go first. What did you think when we started the podcast 10 years ago?
I thought the last couple months. Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought. I thought we'd do a couple months that it'd peter out. And that'd be that. I didn't have any visions of grandeur. You may have. I didn't.
It was so early in the podcast space that you just didn't know if anybody followed you. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what it looked like, there was just the technology was bad on our side. You're hoping somebody's listening. It's one day a week when you first get started. I mean, it's just to throw something out there and see what sticks. I mean,
Well, I mean, I've said this before. I mean, Ben Craddock was like wanting to sponsor it, and what was going on in the back of my mind was why.
Yeah.
I mean, like I've heard, you're supposedly this smart business guy, and this sounds stupid. I mean, he was like all in, Mr. Enthusiasm, and I'm kind of faking it, but like thinking kind of, are you crazy? I mean, why? That remained my thought throughout that day was, but why?
Quick aside here, which nobody's watching on the stream. This might matter to them if they're getting out. Seeing that OPD is about to close down Jackson Avenue for freezing or road conditions.
The morning's going to be really rough.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, the funny part of that Craddock story is that we got in there. We were sitting in Andy Kennedy's office, of all places, for our meeting.
Yeah.
And
Andy was not in there, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Just
he
before anybody,
Andy was not part of the negotiations.
Andy would have been saying, but why?
Yeah. And we like throw the number out or whatever, and we basically get what we asked for. And we walk out thinking we won the lottery, and Ben tells us, like, however time later, I'd have paid twice that. And we're like, well, whatever. Like, we had no idea. We were just happy to get in the boat at that point. So,
yeah,
it's all good.
We were podcasting before podcasting was cool, is what I always say. And we certainly didn't. I can't speak for Chase. I didn't know it was cool. I'd done a lot of talk radio, and just the product sounded so different from that I just didn't. I was like, whatever. I mean, when I got to Oxford in March of 2008, I figured 2 years, maybe 3, max, and I'd be out. If you had told me in March of 2008 that I would be here 13 years later, I would have said, you are out of your mind. And the podcast is the reason for that. I mean, Rivals has been good to me. I've been good to Rivals, the whole deal. But the podcast was what changed that path for sure.
But the other part of that too is the first part of this question as well, is when you got here, you were covering everything locally by yourself. You had the whole beat here alone.
Yeah. Holy shit.
in spring of '08, and that was a different animal in a lot of ways from a newspaper standpoint on who was pretty prominent. At that point, you worried about the Clarion Ledger every day. I mean, that was a different time period.
Yeah, I mean, I got here. They were starting spring football. The basketball team was in the NIT. The baseball season was getting ready to start their first SEC weekend, I think against Florida. Maybe it was the second weekend. Hell, I don't remember. And I was covering recruiting. And they were having these damn junior days that I had to go to. And I'd never used a camera before, really. I had a camera. I was working around the clock. And I thought, this is insane. This is nuts. I mean, all I could think about was this is more work than I ever bargained for. This is nutty. And all the people at Ole Miss hated me, and it was very obvious. And it was like, what am I doing? This. I mean, I've told you, I got a call from the Knoxville News Sentinel, and they were talking about a radio show as well. And to this day, I'm shocked I just didn't take it. I think it was just, I thought that would be way too much to throw at Laura at that point. To go, hey, you know what? We're going to go, instead of moving to Oxford, we're going to move to Knoxville. I'm still to this day stunned. Knowing me the way that I know me, I'm stunned that I didn't take that job because it was offered and I could have just picked up and gone.
Yeah, I was in the middle of that ESPN abomination. I'd been with the Spirit for about 2 years and left to run an ESPN site. I was just, throwing money away every month. It was a disaster in 7,000 different ways. Now, I grew up professionally. I put this on the message board the other day. There's a lot of things that I learned from it that, frankly, I didn't know beforehand, some naivete that I needed to kind of get through. But I guess it was leaving a basketball game, and this would have been probably April 2009. Well, not April. It would have been like February 2009. And I remember Neil and I were talking pretty good about their just common problems and whatnot. And I remember calling and basically was like, do you have anything? Literally. And I think the comment was, it's going to be pennies, and that's fine. Like anything just to jump aboard a ship and try to get out of what I was currently doing. And I started early May 2009, I guess, and then Dave left sometime around a year later. It was kind of end of school year 2010, somewhere in there. So.
Our thanks real quick to Webb. Webb Moore, our buddy, says last year was a survival year for all of us. Now that this year, hands down, has been your finest hour. What are both of your long-term career goals in the future of the podcast? Last year was both of your best years. I don't know about long-term goals. I don't know that I even think like that much anymore.
That's a scary thing in today's media environment.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, we've changed this a lot in 1 year, to the point where I don't think there's really any going back. I don't even have a long-term goal. My short-term goal, I guess, is that there are some things about football coverage on game day specifically that I thought we were lacking in last year that I'm going to fix and get fixed and have fixed. And it might mean bringing
more written content.
Yeah. It might mean bringing somebody in. I don't know what all it means. But yeah, that's about it. During the week, it was fine. And I don't know what the weeks are going to look like this year. Like Chase is getting ready to cover a completely different baseball season than he's ever covered before because he's always had the benefit of and before
basically unlimited access.
People always think that I'm taking a shot when I say this. I'm not at all. But baseball, of all the college sports, is the one that has the most access. It has almost unlimited access. And so you can, if you're good, and he is, and if you're willing to work hard at it, and he is, the amount of content that you can produce is unlimited. And this is going to be his first year, and hopefully his last year doing it where he doesn't have that in-person access. He doesn't have the ability to call somebody over into the corner of the dugout and go, hey, I want to ask you about this. Now it's Zoom and Zoom calls, one Zoom call after another. Like today, we did Kermit Davis on a Zoom call, and I asked some stuff on the Zoom call, and in fairness, so did Ben Garrett. And the two of us probably cover Ole Miss basketball harder than anybody else. We asked questions on the Zoom call that I think in likelihood we would have preferred to have asked in a different environment, just to get kind of your own story. So that Chase is going to have to deal with that at least for the first part of the season, and in my opinion, probably the whole season because everybody's nuts. But it's just going to be different. But from a football standpoint, I don't know what football is going to look like. I think we'll have more in-person interaction, I think. But if you ask me to bet on it, I'm not betting on it. I don't know what August is going to look like, what September is going to look like, and so we'll see.
Let's see. Who hits the first home run of the season? I don't know. Kevin Graham. Why not? Sounds good. I got like a 1 in 12 chance. So.
John Rice Plumlee.
Do what?
John Rice Plumlee.
Sure. Hey, I mean, he's going to play.
I mean, it's all I hear about in football season is Plumlee, and Ely can't play, so there you go.
Okay, that's fair. We'll pencil you in. I'll give you good odds on that if you'd like them.
Okay.
All right. Neil McCready, if you had a choice, that if you achieve one of these things, you'll win $1 million.
Okay.
Which one do you choose out of the three? Get a hit off an MLB pitcher, you get 10 tries. I don't know if that means put it in play or actually get a hit, but either way.
Okay.
Score a basket on Anthony Davis, 5 tries. Score a goal on an NHL goalie, 5 tries.
Okay. I don't know enough about hockey to have a shot there.
I think that would be almost impossible because, frankly, you and I don't skate enough to keep our balance to get off a powerful enough of a shot to have a chance.
Okay. Agreed. I've said this before. I don't think I could get a hit against Major League pitching. I just don't. Number one, I don't think I could turn on a 94-mile-an-hour fastball at this point.
Right.
And so throw in off-speed stuff and movement and no. So
it's Davis, but you have no shot in hell.
It's Davis, and it's hitting a 40-footer with him.
And hope he doesn't extend on you out there.
It's him backing off of you 8 to 10 feet, looking at you like, are you freaking kidding?
And you make it.
And you make a 40-footer. That's really your only shot. Or you kick him real hard in the shin, and he stops for a minute, and you shoot it and make it and sprint for your life. I mean, that's it. I don't think you could. It's Davis because I think Davis would be so amused by you that he might just sort of like, whatever. And you might make a freak bucket. The other stuff's impossible.
If you get to pick any sport where you kind of have a chance in whatever we're talking about, it's probably got to be soccer shootouts where you might get one by maybe.
Maybe.
But probably not.
No, I mean,
because you can't kick it hard enough. Like,
I mean, I've been to some MLS games and they're really good. And then those, the
answer,
yeah.
The answer, even for a hack like me, would be golf because there's a chance of one shot being closer than the pro.
Well, it's definitely golf.
One shot.
A guy like me plays one round every 10 years, and in both of those rounds, I've hit one shot that everybody's like, "Oh, that was really good."
Yeah. If you get 5 tries from 100 yards with a wedge, get a somewhat of a shot of hitting inside the pro on one of those, and go, okay, sure.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the one. If you got to do anything, but nonetheless. Rock Rap says, as journalist, what's the most embarrassing situation you've seen unfold, excluding Hugh Freeze? Ole Miss hasn't had a lot of scandal for the most part. I can't think of much from that standpoint. No. I did have a question though, because I'm going to tie it in with a later question. Is if the thing with Andy in Cincinnati happens today, 2021 instead of 2000, whatever it was, 8, 7, I don't know. It's worse, right?
Yeah, he doesn't get through the weekend.
I mean, because we're more desensitized to it now. I mean, back then it was more uncommon to kind of even have anything going on because we didn't have social media like this. I mean, there are some positives from both sides, but I think because of the political environment, he wouldn't have been able to keep the job. Right?
Agreed. He wouldn't have. I don't remember the date on that, but he wouldn't have gotten through the week.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, 2008, 9, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I was saying I don't remember what day of the week it was. It was like a Wednesday
Oh,
or
okay.
Thursday. He wouldn't have gotten through the week.
Were we? I remember we were all the media was in a room. Were we doing football interviews or something, and we were waiting?
We were doing. Ole Miss was playing in the Cotton Bowl.
Oh, it was that. Okay.
And so they were having practices at inside what's now the Manning Center. And Houston closed the practices, but he let us sit in the cafeteria.
That was nice of him.
And so that broke, and we were all like, what in the...
December 18th, 2008.
Yeah. They were having Cotton Bowl prep.
Okay.
Sure, we were waiting for practice to end.
Okay.
And they were playing Louisville that night in Cincinnati.
Yeah. It was a Thursday.
Yeah.
So. Neil, what was about Lane at Ole Miss?
That was a wild day.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Neil, what was it about Lane and Ole Miss that made you think they could have a red-hot marriage so long before anyone else thought it was legitimately possible?
How do I do this with it not being an insult? Because you and I have talked about this before. So, Ole Miss kind of likes to be the girl at the bar that everybody notices. Ole Miss is kind of, in my eyes, the way I perceive it, Ole Miss sort of likes to be sexy. Ole Miss wants to win. If you gave Ole Miss the choice between winning 3 yards in a cloud of dust or winning with some exotic offense, 99 out of 100 would choose the exotic offense.
Yeah.
Like if you ask that of Mississippi State or Auburn or LSU even, a lot of those people would go, oh, give me the 3 yards in the cloud of dust. And then Kiffin's kind of that way. I mean, he likes attention. That's why he does the Twitter thing. He kind of likes being different. I think Ole Miss kind of likes being different. And then I just kind of, starting in about 2017, I just kind of thought the two parties sort of needed each other. I mean, I think we always use like dating analogies. I think you would have set Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin up on a date. You would have said, hey, I think you guys would like each other. Basically because you're both kind of weird. And I don't mean that in a bad way, just different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of been exactly what I thought it would be.
Well, like I said, I mean, they need each other in a lot of ways. It gets him back in the league. Ole Miss, it was frankly at a time when he's a guy you could actually get. You know what I mean? I mean,
sure.
There's lots of stuff there. So.
Well, and there was also the connection where one of the reasons I thought it would work is that I think Kiffin kind of looked at Ole Miss like, I don't know. And I think Ole Miss kind of looked at Kiffin like, oh, boy, this is outside of our comfort zone. And yet, I've always kind of thought Ole Miss just didn't get itself.
Yeah.
And it's been exactly what I kind of thought it would be. And, I mean, you throw the pandemic out of this, and last season at Vaught Hemingway and the Grove and stuff is nuts.
Yeah.
And that's the way you guys like it. Y'all like nuts. I mean, you do. Not Houston nuts, but nuts. You like that stuff. And so, and I think he kind of likes it. And, you know, I don't know how long it lasts or doesn't last or any of that stuff, but I think when it ends, there's a really good chance that Lane Kiffin looks back and goes, man, that was good for me. And I think there's a really good chance that Ole Miss looks at Lane Kiffin and goes, that's exactly what we needed.
Mm-hmm. Caleb Mandrake says, what are your favorite mid-range rides for old fashions? I haven't done old fashions forever. Neil probably has more than I have in any semblance of a recent time. But don't go crazy. You're not looking for anything overly powerful. I mean, the Bullet Rye is a great
It's the best one.
cocktail. It's
Yep.
a great rye just to keep on your shelf. Use it as a mixer for Manhattans and old fashions, things like that. If you want something with a little more pop, I like the Knob Creek rye, but don't spend a crazy amount of money on the rye for a cocktail. Bullet, Knob Creek, call it a day.
Yeah, just go mid-range. Just get a comfortable rye, and because you're putting stuff with it. You're putting bitters with it. You're putting some sugar with it. Save the really good rye for when you're just having a rye by itself.
Mm-hmm. Rebels 810 says you guys talk a lot about how DK Metcalf is a perfect fit for Seattle's system. If you had to peg the best spot for Elijah Moore, who would you choose? My best guess is it doesn't matter as much because he's an elite route runner, but I think he'd be perfect in Baltimore.
Be perfect in Tennessee. As a compliment to A.J. Brown. Frankly, he'd be perfect in Seattle as a compliment to DK Metcalf. He's a better fit overall than at a lot of places than DK was. DK needs the big arm. Elijah can,
this slot elite route runner kind of works anywhere. That's a pretty unanimous spot.
Yeah, he fits in anywhere. I mean,
tell you where he'd be hell is Green Bay.
Oh yeah, with a guy like Rodgers
and Devontae Adams.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you get any clearance? Maybe this was in your notebook or your story today. I didn't look. Anything about if they're able to make up those games on that Saturday for SEC basketball play?
Yeah, there's a story up at rebelgrove.com, and I asked Kermit about it today, and he said he fully anticipates there being a weekend of makeup games March the 6th. The tournament starts on the 10th. He thought that those games would be played.
And he still believes there will be a tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't know whether Ole Miss would play South Carolina or LSU or how they would do it, but he thought they would play another game.
Well, they get 18 conference games in no matter what.
As many teams as possible.
Yeah. North Tampa Rep says, Chase, great job with Ben Garrett on the crossover pod. Enjoy listening to how you two have been in the press box 15 years and have come and gone. People have come and gone. When you see these kids from the DM or local paper come through, can you tell which ones will make it in the business? Has anyone surprised you? I tell you, I'm a little embarrassed by this. Is I've become kind of antisocial. I don't talk to many of these people anymore. And I kind of hate admitting that in some way, but I'm not overly social in press boxes at all. Neil's nodding like, hey, I hear you. But especially in baseball, because Ben was making fun of it. But I have my seat. It's in the corner. I just go sit down. I've got headphones in almost always. I'm listening to a podcast. I'm in my own world. I'm not overly paying attention. God, probably in 5 or 7 years, the only one that I've legitimately become friends with is Brian Scott Rippey. So I don't know. I tell you what I notice is the kids who still have a lot to learn, and I don't feel like they're ready for the beat yet. And maybe that's how you learn, and I'm not even really necessarily criticizing, but when they are scared to death, they never open their mouth. If Mike or Kermit or anybody even playing with them says one word and they kind of go into a shell, you see quickly who kind of can maneuver that and handle it and grow up a little bit over the months. Before the pandemic, now we don't see anything but kids sitting on Zoom calls.
I asked Kermit about sledding today, so I asked the hard questions.
Okay. Well, we did have, early in the year, Lane was picking on that kid who looked like he was like doing the Zoom from like a meat locker or like out on the river somewhere or something.
Yeah.
And he looked a little weird, and Lane took a couple playful jabs at him that did not really get picked up by him as jabs. He didn't really understand them, but it was funny at the time. So
I was amused.
Do what?
I said I was amused.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good. Let's see. What are your opinions on the new contract signed by Tatis Jr.?
Whew. Did you see that?
360, 340?
342 over 13 or 14 years.
Yeah.
I did think it was a fascinating thread today on Twitter from Trevor Bauer.
Oh, what'd he say?
Well, he talked about how the commission on that contract for the agent is $17 million over the course of the deal. And Bauer's point, and I think he's on to something, is that if you break that down into hours worked on Fernando Tatis Jr., it's an insane amount of money for the agency. And, his agent is Rachel Luba. And because so many people out there are misogynist, basically, for lack of a better word. It's been like, oh, he's only with her because she's female and because she's attractive. And they've implied that he and she must have some sort of a relationship that goes beyond player-agent. And in reality, that's not why he went with her. He went with her because she operates on an hourly basis, like an attorney does, as opposed to an agent who gets a commission on the contract.
That's pretty interesting.
It's fascinating. It really was because it's always blown me away. I mean, some of the things that some of the people in mainstream media have said that is so sexist. Oh, well, the only reason he's with her is because she's an attractive female. I'm a Trevor Bauer fan, so up front.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, even when Bauer beat the Cubs, I'm laughing at him. I think he's great. I think he's great for baseball. He walks into Dodgers camp with his camcorder, the whole deal. I think he's great for baseball. Kids love him because he shows them what he's doing. He talks. He likes the stuff. When Tim Anderson of the White Sox hits a home run off of him, he gets on Twitter and goes, "You got me," and it's fun. But he said the reason he went with Rachel Luba is because he liked her business model better. And given what he's done, he's saved a bunch of money.
Yeah. The breakdown of Tatis Jr.'s contract, he'll be paid $34 million over the next 4 years and $306 million over his 10 free agent years for $340 million. He'll get a $10 million signing bonus with salaries of 1, 5, 7, and 11 in his first 4 years. The deal tops out at $36 million 1 year, and there's a no trade clause and no opt-outs.
No trade, no opt-out. So he's in San Diego.
Married to one another.
Yeah, there's so many players out there. I was reading this about Chris Bryant. There's so many players out there that right now the one thing they really want, given all the instability in our lives, is they want stability. They want no trade clauses, and they're willing to give money away to get a no trade clause.
What's interesting about that, and it's kind of what people saw in the Pujols deal and other ones, and I understand why they're doing what they're doing with their windows and whatnot, but that large of contract that late in your tenure, I mean, just are you healthy? Can you put up numbers? I mean, that's what's scary.
What you get out of Tatis now, if you're the Padres, though, is that you get this superstar that you can build your franchise around.
Yeah,
you don't have to worry about it. You can build, you can market him, you can build, and he's so great for the game. I mean, I was at a Cubs-Padres series at Wrigley in 19, and the two guys on the field that you couldn't take your eyes off of were Javi Baez and Fernando Tatis Jr.
Mm-hmm.
It was like whatever they did next. And I got to go to one of those Saturday games. It was great. They both hit home runs. They both made spectacular plays in the field. They were electric. And if you're San Diego and you have a chance to lock down a guy like that and build your marketing campaign around him for the next 8-10 years, even if the last 3 or 4 years are a bust, it's worth it now. And the sport needs to build around people like that. For the love of God, it needs to build around people like that. Baseball's got to grow up right now. We've had that conversation. The players have never been better. The pitching's never been better. All that stuff, but they've got to let themselves become more accessible. And a guy like Tatis is perfect.
Yeah. 501 Rev says, Neil, you said the Arrieta deal makes no sense from a baseball perspective. Since it's likely the Cubs will struggle this year, aren't these the type of one-year deals, Pederson or Arrieta, Workman, exactly the type of deals that should be making? Scott Feldman says hello.
Yeah, I get it. Sure, that you can his what's being implied there, and he's right, is that you can move those players close to the deadline. You can get young players. He's referring to Scott Feldman. The Cubs moved Feldman and some cat for Jake Arrieta and Pedro Strop from the Orioles back in, I guess that was 2013, 2014, and that kind of worked out for the Cubs. Ironically, the Cubs re-signed Arrieta and Strop on the same day in 2021, so hopefully that's a sign of things to come. It's probably not. But regardless, yeah, I get it. I get it. It's fine. I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie to you. Today, I saw pictures of Jake Arrieta in a Cub uniform throwing, and it made me feel good. So it's just sports at the end of the day, and if sports make you feel good, great. I mean, would I like to see the Cubs be more competitive? Would I like to? It was Feldman and Steve Clevenger. Would I like to see the Cubs be more competitive? Certainly. Would I like to see the Cubs jump out in free agency and bring in some splashy guy? Of course. But on the flip side, if the Cubs were to sign Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant to extensions, I would be so freaking happy. And it has nothing to do with baseball. It's nostalgia at this point.
Do you believe in extraterrestrials?
Yes.
I think it's arrogance to say we 100% don't have other beings somewhere.
I think it's idiotic to assume that when you look out into the sky at night and you go,
galaxies.
This is just one gazillionth of what's out there, to think that there's no life anywhere. I don't know how you draw that conclusion. And the people that do, it's fine. Do your thing. It's cool. But I just look at it and go, there's no way there's not more life out there. There's got to be life out there. Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Deuce McCluster 22. Sorry, but there's no way in the world I'm watching the seasons from 2011. Sorry, nope, not going back and reliving that year for anything.
From 2011,
like to be a live pod. 2011. No thanks, I'm good. I'm sure there's like backstories around every game that season, but I'm all right. Ooh. It was bad.
It was rough.
Travis T56. He's showing where a Florida baseball player is out for the season. It says the tweet says Nick Pogue lost for Tommy John. He was going to start some midweek games and would have been a key bullpen guy when SEC play started. Don't know anything about other SEC baseball teams. Huge loss, I'm guessing, judging from tweet. Yeah, I mean, it'd be like Ole Miss losing Drew McDaniel or Jackson Kimbrell or one of their late arms. Now Florida has it in spades. They're the most talented overall roster in the country. But yeah, sure, it's a loss for sure. I don't have one here. I've actually read a pretty good bit, but nothing that I'm sticking out and necessarily want to tell people that that's changed my life or anything. Any fiction or nonfiction over the last 6 months to a year that you would recommend?
I hadn't read any fiction. Need to. I've started reading. I got it as a Christmas gift. Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights.
Okay.
I've had people rave about it, and I'm not ready to rave about it. It is interesting. He's an interesting dude.
He's incredibly interesting. That's the word. I mean, we talked about him the other day. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with everything. There's some things where it's so out there, but when he speaks, I do have a tendency to listen and at least take in whatever he's saying and run it through my head a little bit and then spit it out one side or the other. He has some points that I do feel like are very beneficial for people.
I will throw this out there. I got a DM from somebody just then. He says, "Hey, Neil, not that this matters, but the SEC office has approved Alabama and Ole Miss sending their bands to Atlanta for the first football games of the season."
Huh.
That's a good sign.
That's a really good sign.
A really good sign. I'm looking for signs. That's a sign.
That's a really good sign.
Yeah.
I mean, that's maybe even, yeah, I mean, that's
great. Happy for those kids and those bands. Seriously. Hopefully, they don't have to space them out over like 400 sections or something. They can just let them be a band, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Hope.
Windock of Forest says, I know both of you listen to Adam Carolla, who just did his 3,000th podcast. What number are y'all on? And do we get a special anniversary edition one day? Well, the problem is I have no idea what number it is, so it'd be really hard to do an anniversary, which I guess we go back to the first one and find the date. But I will guess just this show, 2,200, something like that. It's a guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start. I'd have to really think 200 shows a year.
It's been 10 years.
Yeah, it's probably about right.
About 2,000, something like that.
A lot.
Yeah, couple. And they're so long. I mean, you start doing minutes, and you're like, my God.
Webb's in the thread. He says, Webb, can you clarify that comment so I know what you're saying? Are you saying it's over or that it's over? I'm I'll let him clarify.
He's saying that cases are down 44% in 3 weeks. I think that's what he's saying.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's what that was.
Yeah. Today I've done 2 podcasts. I did 3 yesterday. I podcast a lot, but I'm a huge Corolla fan because, man, I don't know how he does it.
Have you done more podcasts or radio shows?
Podcast.
Have you?
Yeah, I don't do a lot of radio anymore.
No, I mean pure.
Podcast.
Okay.
Because I probably did. Yeah, because I did 6 years of daily radio at probably
50.
Yeah, 250, such 1,500 radio shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 hours a day.
3 hours a day.
Yeah. Oxford Rebels 5 says, I know Ole Miss has one of the top baseball programs in the country, but where do you feel like they would be as a program if Evan Button makes that throw to first base? How many College World Series appearances would they have had by now? Fingers crossed everything's lined up for Omaha return this year. Also, between this site and Netflix, I've gotten into F1 racing and looking forward to the season. Which team should I pull for? I could not give you one single F1 racing team at all. I know zero about the sport. Nothing.
I did an hour and 20 minutes of NASCAR. That's the best I can do, man.
Yeah, I know No Laying Up's gotten into F1 a little bit, and I've got some friends that are into it, but I don't know a single thing whatsoever. Here's the deal. They make it in 09. Pressure is off more later. Things change from just a pure mood that is around that team. I think they get there in 14 a little easier. They're not dealing with the burden that's going on. But that's a weird one. If you said, hey, they get there in 05, what happens? I think that changes the number of Omaha appearances. I think that really changes the direction of the program. I don't necessarily in 09 because in 10 they were fine, but they weren't a great baseball team. And frankly, they were kind of bad in 11, 12, and 13 in some different ways. So,
and those step backs were going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, that's my point. I mean, Mike's not on the hot seat like he was in 12 and 13 the same way, but I don't know that would have changed the program much.
What it may have done is prevented the who was the team in Tennessee that beat them?
Tennessee Tech.
It probably prevents a day like that from happening.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, there was this palpable deal that day. There was this angst that was around the program that
if you had more than one appearance, maybe it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, LSU loses to Slippery Rock or whatever, and nobody goes, oh, God, it's over. Oh, God, oh, God.
Stony Brook.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Same point.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But, yeah, you're right, Stony Brook. Whatever. But they lose to them, and nobody goes, oh, God, it's the end of the world. It's the end of the world.
LSU was like cheering them after the game. Like it was like a standing ovation. Wow,
that's
like,
cool. What a cute story. Y'all enjoy your day. We'll be back.
See you later.
Yeah, we'll be back. And they were. And that's kind of that. It's winning's hard. If winning were easy, everyone would do it. And so sometimes getting over that last hump's just really hard. But that game was not just Evan Button, by the way. We've talked about that before.
I think you could make the argument it might be Anko's biggest managerial mistake in 21 years. Because he doesn't go out there and try to calm Goforth down right after that. David's a freshman, freaks out, walks the next guy. You can tell mentally that just – because it didn't change the mood in the stadium. Everything went crazy. Mike would have been better served to go out there, calm him down, give the stadium a minute to breathe. Hey, runner on first, one out, play ball, all good.
It was the same mistake Dusty Baker made with Mark Pryor in the Bartman game.
Mm-hmm.
Walk out to the mound and go, hey, it was a strike.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It's a foul ball. Relax. Throw another strike. Get out of it. We're good. Instead, that angst got going at Swayze. Oh, God, what's going to happen? And the rest of it was predictable.
Yeah.
And even then, Ole Miss had an opportunity to win the game in the bottom of the inning, and
they loaded the bases with one out and didn't score.
Somebody gets a base hit right there. No one's ever talking about Evan Button. In much the same way with the Cubs, if Alex Gonzalez fields a double play ground ball, it's a double play. Cubs have the lead. Go to the bottom of the 8th. The rest is who knows how that changes history. So
I know this is a negative for all the people watching, but Grind, being one of our not Ole Miss fan, longer listeners, that was really funny. He goes, "Yo, that pod after the Tennessee Tech series, popcorn and soda and sloop that thing."
It's the only time that our podcast ratings fell off a cliff.
No one wanted to hear it or talk about it or anything.
We should have just taken 2 weeks off.
You're right. I know.
Took 2 weeks for numbers to come back.
I'm not reliving that whole deal, but it's the most upset I've ever seen Mike. I mean, he was just despondent that night. I mean,
sure.
just.
Well, I wrote a column about the Bartman game, about how, hey, you guys think this is don't kid yourself and think this is just going to pass. It's not. This will linger for years. For years, it will linger for years, and it did. It lingered for years.
Anyway. Let's see. Webb says, y'all pray for Bubba and first responders, but he's working 70 hours this week and all the bad weather we've gotten. Yeah, tow truck drivers have as much work as they would like this week. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I saw Oxford this morning basically said they couldn't fix the roads because people wouldn't stay off them. It was too busy. So, yeah, it's been that kind of week.
Yeah, tow truck drivers, plumbers, electricians.
Yeah.
All the work they want.
Yeah. OT6, I've heard you mention the amount of hype surrounding the baseball team compared to the actual returning offensive production experience. Is there a potential for the offense to not live up to the hype that was created from last season? Yeah, 100%. That is at least a possibility. There's no doubt about that. Do I expect it? No. But sure. Look, that's what happened to Ole Miss in 2013. I mean, looking at history. All those bats that ended up being All-Americans in 2014 as juniors, they kind of sucked at times in 2013 as sophomores. Austin Bousfield was an All-American, a Ferris Award winner, and he was bad his sophomore year. That kind of stuff happens. So could it happen to 2 or 3 dudes? Sure. I mean, that's the thing. Ole Miss does not have a single offensive player on its roster that's played in the entire SEC schedule. They don't have one.
What does that mean? And there's a lot of teams in the league that have that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's the end of the world at all. I'm just saying.
These are questions that are being asked at Mississippi State, at Arkansas, at LSU, at Texas A&M. They didn't play a conference schedule last season. You don't really exactly know what you have.
In saying that, all of our lives are a little better if they go 2-1 this weekend compared to 0-3 or 1-2. It just is what it is.
Is there a point where it's too early for me to tweet Fire Bianco? Where it's, I did it last year when they fell behind for the first time in the first game.
Yeah, he's letting State on the damn plane tomorrow.
Right. See,
do him a favor.
It's gotten soft.
You did notice though they didn't offer to pick Arkansas up on the way.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Hogs, y'all figure it out.
Arkansas probably not going through Birmingham to get there, I'm guessing.
Let's see. Rebels 1988 said, y'all hit on this before, but how soon did Hugh Freeze's name pop up in 2011? Was anyone else on the radar? I don't think anybody else was officially really on the radar or matter at all.
That deal was done.
Yeah, no.
That deal was done before Houston was officially out. The only other name that they tried to put on the radar was the cat at Southern Miss at the time. He went to North Carolina.
Larry Fedora.
Fedora, thanks. Yeah, and that was a smokescreen.
He interviewed though.
Yeah, sure.
Didn't
he? Yeah, sure.
I think so.
Sure.
Let's see, where are we at? Chase, can you give us a little more inside information on what caused the bad blood between Ole Miss and Arizona State in the Super Regional in 2007? Did Mike and Murphy not get along? Who were the main players involved and what was said between the teams? It was, they had been chippy anyway, and Arizona State was hitting, Eric Sogard was the Arizona State player. He played in the major leagues a little bit. Sogard was the Arizona State player, and maybe it was Evan Button or Alex Kleeman, the catcher, that just tossed a bat in like a general direction, and that bat toss created a lot of issue and animosity. That was kind of the flicker that finally lit the fire. It was Fuller Smith, Kleeman, Button, and then once Pat Murphy came out, Mike came out too, and it became a coach-on-coach situation. And it was a really funny visual because Murphy outweighed Mike by a good 220 pounds, something like that. But the stadium's pretty small. You could hear Mike give it a little there in the middle of the field. So it was pretty tense. Those two teams did not get along, considering they had no previous interactions whatsoever between them. Which that was kind of Pat Murphy's way of coaching, though. That's who he is. That's kind of Pat's deal.
Well, when you violate the unwritten rules of baseball, sometimes things get a little nasty.
Well, and a little history here too. The other unwritten rule was, hey, don't recruit guys after they were committed. And one of the guys on that team was committed to Ole Miss, and Arizona State basically flipped him and kept recruiting him. So there was a little bit of that between the coaches coming in as well.
For sure.
Kyle Rowling for Arizona State. So, anyway. Here's a question for you, Neil. Is the basketball season a success regardless of the way it finishes, considering how it was looking a few weeks away?
No. No. A success? No. A success is making the tournament. I mean, it's what it is. Would you disagree?
No, it's 100% just the tournament.
I mean, you make the tournament, it's a success. You don't make the tournament, it's not a success. Period. Now, there's some nuance there, and you can spin it, and you can massage it. But no, if you make the tournament, you're good. If you don't, it's not good.
Yeah, that's where Ole Miss is as a program right now. That's it. You get in or you don't.
Well, on a team like this one, where there's a lot of veteran guys, you've got Devontae Shuler, who's a senior point guard, who's played forever. You've got Romello White, who's a 1,000-point scorer in college basketball. Jarkel Joyner's a 1,000-point scorer. You've got KJ Buffin's back. You've got this veteran team. No, your goal is the tournament.
ITAD says the term Zoom call is used quite commonly by you all. Is that there's a different video conferencing platforms used out there today other than Zoom. Are you all referring to any video meetings utilized as Zoom when it could be WebEx, Microsoft Teams, GoToMeeting, and Skype, like calling cheese and crackers, peanut butter and crackers, nabs? Referring to a product specifically by Nabisco, which all are not, or referring to blah, blah, blah. Basically, no, Neil and I definitely, because we're constantly trying to figure out what's best for the podcast, know the difference. All of the universities are using Zoom for the press conferences. That's the reason we use Zoom in that context.
Yeah, I've done a Microsoft Teams call with a prospective advertiser.
Yeah.
But everything else has been Zoom.
Yeah. I mean, we're using Skype right now for this, but...
Yeah, the problem with Zoom is that I don't know how to put Zoom into Ecamm and make it live.
Right.
We could do a Zoom call where we let all sorts of people in and we could all see each other and stuff, but and maybe that's something to do on a different day. But that would be interesting how many people could get in on a Zoom call.
We just throw out the link and go have at it?
Throw out the link and see what happens?
All 100 and whatever just sitting in the Zoom call together?
Yeah.
I mean, you can mute everybody but the person, so, I mean.
Yeah.
It could work.
You could do it because make people raise their hand like we do.
Yeah. I can't find the hand raise button sometimes. It kind of disappears in my interface.
You got to hit the reactions button and then raise your hand because it used to be a hand raise button and now it's the reactions button.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. So, fair. Let's see. Delta Rev 22, several questions. Is there a story either of you wish you had pursued but didn't? Could be a special interest story about a player or coach, a scandal. Could you expound on any you may have? Not always, but sometimes that's an access thing. Who can I get to? Who's available in the interview? Is that doable?
There's one that comes to mind for me immediately. As crazy as it sounds, you'll laugh because we talked about it a lot at the time. So that year they were putting together the 2013 recruiting class. I was the only person from Mississippi that was at Laquan Treadwell's press conference in Crete.
That's right.
And we got wind that the Laramie Tunsil thing was real, and Ole Miss was playing football in not football, basketball in Gainesville, and I thought, I'll drive, but it's going to be a hell of a drive, and I'll stop in Lake City and I'll do a big thing on Tunsil. And we didn't do it, in large part just because it was so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I, in hindsight, wish we had done it, because I think, and frankly, I think it was an Ole Miss football mistake. Someone should have said, hey, just so you guys know, this Tunsil thing's real.
Yeah.
We've got a real shot.
Right.
I think I would have done that story and done the big Laramie Tunsil to Ole Miss story, because if I remember correctly, it wasn't too long after that game that the commitment came out. So we would have been on top of that. And I think it would have, from our standpoint, it would have been kind of the cherry on the top of a really strong recruiting coverage cycle that we had.
Yeah.
Because I got a couple of calls from people on the text from people on the staff that day when I was in Crete. They're like, "Are you there?" And I was like, "Yeah, I flew to Chicago yesterday."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, wow." And I was like, "Well,
here we are."
My sourcing told me you were getting him, and I said I'll be there.
He played on bad teams. I'd say the other one that if you could have really dug deep into his story that I feel like fans never learned enough about, and the losing made it where he's not a name remembered as much, but Greg Little.
Yeah.
If you could really get into the Greg Little story with the real thing, that'd be pretty good. Be hard to do, but kind of the one that came to my mind.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Let's see. He says, thoughts on Widow Jane 10. Saw a bottle the other day. Couldn't decide if I wanted to buy it. Have either of you tried it? And what was your opinion? Was it worth the purchase?
So
Neil
good.
loved it.
So good.
The 12 is outstanding. It was like my favorite bourbon of the year, last year or year before. But the 10 is great. If you can get it at the right price point, it's really, really good.
I've had people besides you tell me the 12 is just incredible. And if it's that much better than the 10, then I can't wait to have it. But
the 12 makes it where I don't even really want to buy the 10. I'll be honest. And now they have a 14 that I don't like at all. So for whatever reason, 10's good, 12's great, 14 to me is bad. I've only had it once. Maybe I had a bad bottle, maybe whatever, I don't know, but it didn't do much for me there.
The 10 is fantastic.
Let's see. Diamond Rub 1083 says, Chase, if you play any 5 U.S. courses, what would they be? No other qualifications such as cost or course availability. Also asked Jeffrey. I'll send him a text, let you know what he says. Well, I mean, it's ones I can't get on at all, no matter what, by myself. So we're talking Cypress Point, Augusta, Pine Valley.
I want to play Pebble Beach because I've been to Pebble Beach a couple of times, and the course is so cool looking.
And that's one. I mean, because, look, I can get on and play, but it's $600. I mean, there's a big golf push, too, kind of going, hey, they kind of hate how Pebble Beach is known. Like, the golf media tries to be like, oh, look, public course. It's like, in name only. I mean, again, it's $600. It's not like going down to your local muni track and throwing some dollar bills in the machine and going out and playing golf. I mean, it's still a destination course.
You still have to book it way ahead of time and all that stuff.
It's not a whatever.
That would be one that I would actually think about. No joke, like, because it's so gorgeous. I would think about if I was part of a group that was going to play there, I would actually go get lessons and the whole deal to get better so that I could have fun.
Yeah. We'll close here. Your question. When or will Zion Williamson be the face of the league? Will it be an NBA champ or the Charles Barkley of this generation?
I'm cheering for him. He seems like a great guy. And he's good. But I don't think he's Barkley good. And I don't know that he's going to ever be good enough to be the face of the league. I worry about his weight. I worry about him holding up physically. And when you compare him against people who have been the face of the league, I just don't see it. And I hope I'm wrong because he seems like a great young guy. I like him. I can't help but cheer for him. The Pelicans are fun when he's playing well. But I'm skeptical. Is that fair? I don't want that to come across as negative. I hope he ends up being a superstar. I hope he ends up dominating the league. I'm cynical.
Tucker, I see you in the chat. What golf course am I missing? What's number 5 on the course that I should pick to play? I'm looking for your question, Justin. Since you say take my question, I'm kind of scrolling back through. What was it?
Yeah, I didn't see it either. There's just players in the league that strike me as more likely to be the face of the league than Zion.
So who is the face in 5 years?
I don't know. I don't know. If you'd asked me before the season, I would have said Luka, but he's kind of had a disappointing year.
Maybe Giannis still?
Maybe. I mean, the league's really good. It's hard to be the face of the league. It's why, not to get into a debate deal here, but it's why, frankly, a lot of people I think are underselling just how good LeBron is historically. LeBron's been the face of the league for a long time when the league has a bunch of great players. And he's consistently been the face of the league, going to different places and staying the face of the league. I mean, he's been the face of the league for how long? 10 years or more?
Yeah.
Jeez. There's just a bunch of guys out there. Zion's got a chance, but there's just guys I think have a better chance. I'd bet on Luka before I bet on Zion. And I like both guys. I think they're both terrific. But you got to face of the league if you're telling me face of the league, I'm talking about Magic Bird, right? Magic Johnson, Larry Bird were the face of the league in the 80s. Michael Jordan was the face of the league for forever. Then you could argue that Kobe Bryant was the face of the league for a while. And then LeBron's been the face of the league since 15 years. I just don't know that I see Zion in that category. Hell, who is in that category? Those are all-time greats.
There might not be one.
There might just not be one. Yeah, I mean, is Zion going to be Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant? I don't see it. And that's okay, because those dudes are like Mount Rushmore guys.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys revolutionized the sport. I think it could have been Kevin Durant had it not been for injuries. It's hard. Yeah, someone says Ja Morant. I love Ja. I live in a house with a kid who loves Ja Morant. I mean, like first name basis loves Ja Morant. It's hard to dominate the NBA. The play is so good. I mean, it's a great league. It really is. But who knows? I mean, I don't know who captivates young people. But right now, it's not Zion today. I want it to be him though, because he's great. He's fantastic. His personality is so much about him is awesome.
I knew he would. Tommy got a lot of good remarks from people, Twitter and whatnot today from the Dale Earnhardt stuff. So if you haven't checked that out, give it a listen.
He was really good.
Yeah,
he's a great storyteller. And what always strikes me about this, I said this on yesterday's podcast, and so I won't be repetitive much. He still 20 years later gets emotional about that day.
He seemed like it even just in quote tweeting it. You know what I mean? It was just that feeling.
Yeah, he gets emotional about that day. He looks back on it and he watched them take Dale Earnhardt out of that car, and even in that moment, all he thought was, "Boo, they're going to be mad. Dale's going to be mad. They'd cut the top off of his car. He's going to be mad." They put him on the stretcher, and he thought, "Boy, he must have gotten a dinger. Must have really gotten a dinger."
Mm-hmm.
And then when he finds out he didn't make it, I think he was just. I think to this day, 20 years later, it still stuns him. He chokes up when he says, "You don't carry Superman out on a stretcher." And that's what Dale Earnhardt was in that sport. You talk about LeBron and Kobe and Jordan and Bird, Magic. That's what Dale Earnhardt was to NASCAR.
Yeah.
He was all of those dudes wrapped up in one in NASCAR. And, he was the Tom Brady of NASCAR. He was LeBron James of NASCAR. He was, I don't know who the baseball equivalent of that would be. Babe Ruth?
Right.
Hank Aaron?
When you've got the media and the marketing and the game and everything, the whole package.
I'm trying to think of a baseball guy in the modern era who compares to that. There's not one.
It was a random place for it, but there was a really good story. It's actually what kind of made me remember to load it this morning. It was an Esquire this morning of all places. I saw it on Twitter, where a guy talked about being a young person when Earnhardt died 20 years ago, and his dad took him to a Walmart in Knoxville. And the purpose was to just buy anything with the number 3 on it to remember Dale by after he died, and that it was all cleared out, that there was a massive humanity in a Knoxville Walmart that morning or afternoon or whenever, and that they were buying up every sticker and shirt and even like the old Calvin and Hobbes like Piss on 3 or 24 stuff, like anything that could have been anything with Earnhardt was sold out of the Walmart in Knoxville.
Hunter says MJ now in NASCAR. We talked to Tommy about that a lot. Kind of the second half of the podcast was about where NASCAR is today and about Bubba Wallace and Michael Jordan and trying to get the sport mainstream again. And, NASCAR's trying really hard to win African-American fans, to get their eyeballs, to get their interest. And everybody in NASCAR wants Bubba Wallace to win. And now, for the first time, Bubba Wallace is, I don't want to give the whole podcast away, but he talked about how he saw Jimmy Johnson, Tommy did, when Johnson was in the secondary circuit, and he thought he was a bad driver. And Jimmy Johnson got on the NASCAR track and got in the best cars with the best equipment and the best people, and, you see the results. He won tons of championships. 7 titles. And so, the hope is that now that Bubba Wallace has Michael Jordan and this massive budget and Joe Gibbs Racing and all of that he's going to have the best equipment and start winning races.
Yeah.
And, and make the sport more mainstream, because I said this and he agreed, and it made me feel better. There's so much money in NASCAR that in winning as opposed to losing, that it doesn't matter whether you're white or black or male or female or an alien, to tie in some of the other questions. If you can get behind that car and win, they don't care. Yeah. They don't care who's driving it. If you can win, there's a place for you.
Yeah. Ole Miss and State, 4 o'clock on Saturday. Is that right?
5 o'clock. 5 o'clock.
Yeah. 4 o'clock was the LSU game that did not happen. 5 o'clock Saturday for the Bulldogs and the Rebels. Again, first pitch for Ole Miss all weekend, assuming that nothing happened, other changes, and they'll be playing in Arlington. 3 o'clock all 3 days, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for that. TCU, Texas Tech, and then Texas to close it out. Hopefully, we are back in the same place next week, starting on Monday. For that, and then next Thursday night as well, we'll be with you. So appreciate everybody in the stream hanging out. A little different show tonight, but we made it work. So we appreciate you all for joining us for this. This will be in podcast form tomorrow. So have a good night. Take care. Be safe. And we'll talk to you again on Monday.